Good evening. You know the way at parties you often get asked, what do you do? I used to answer that question with, I'm a television journalist. And to be honest, I did quite well out of that. It wasn't bad. These days, unfortunately, I answer it with, I'm a behavioural economist, which doesn't quite elicit the same response. People often look at you as if to say, oh God, I'm trapped with a nerd. Well, for the next 6 minutes, I'm afraid you are trapped with the nerd. But let me assure you of something. Behavioural economics actually is much, much more interesting than television journalism. Let me see if I can persuade you. We tend to think of science as answering questions, finding stuff out, but actually really good science raises questions. And behavioural economics is doing just that. The big idea I want to talk to you about tonight is actually really a big question. What behavioural economists study is economic decision-making. That's not just what brand of cheese you go and buy. It's big, important decisions, like why some of you have a pension and some of you don't. How you decide how much to borrow. Or questions about trading off now against the future, like why some of you do and some of you don't smoke, or eat healthily, or drink excessively, or take physical exercise. These are big decisions, and over the last few decades, we've started to answer some of those scientific questions. We've started to understand much better how you take those decisions. So much so that companies and governments are getting really interested in the findings. Let me give you some examples. Supposing I work for a company that offers a medical procedure. If I tell you that procedure has a 95% chance of success, you are more likely to go for it than if I tell you it has a 5% chance of failure. That's called a framing effect. Or supposing you're buying a digital camera from me, and you're thinking of going for the basic budget model, but you're considering a slightly more expensive, fancier one, more megapixels, better display. If I introduce a product to the range that's a luxury, multifunctional, very expensive model, you won't buy it. But you will become more likely to buy the slightly more expensive one. That's the power of irrelevant alternatives. Supposing it's a more complex product, supposing I'm selling insurance. If I show you that my product is definitely better on just one of the very many dimensions that matter, perhaps something simple like processing claims more quickly, you will be more likely to buy my product than the competitors. That's a focusing illusion. In fact, whatever I'm selling you, if you just know the name of my product and recognise it, you're more likely to buy it. That's the mere exposure effect. Indeed, I can manipulate you in more subtle ways than that. Supposing I offer mortgages. If I get a famous person to voice over the ad, you may not recognise the voice. You may not be able to put a name or a face to it. You may not even know that you know it, but the feeling of familiarity it generates will make you more likely to get your mortgage from me. I'm actually reducing your ambiguity aversion, believe it or not. These decisions are not just being made by companies. These manipulations of decisions cannot just be done by companies, they can be done by government too. Supposing I work for government and I pass a law that means that workers have to fill out and sign a form in order to opt out of the company pension scheme, instead of filling out a form to opt in. If I do that, the number of you who get pensions will roughly double. That's the power of defaults. Or if I pass a law that forces food companies into a traffic light labelling system, where all healthy foods have a big green label, slightly less healthy foods an amber label, and unhealthy foods a big red label, you will eat better. That is a salient feedback effect. All of the effects that I've described to you, all of them, are now backed by bodies of scientific evidence, most of it recent. Now, some of it has just confirmed hunches marketing people have had all along, but most of it actually had not previously been thought of. And like all scientific knowledge, it can be used for good or ill. You can use this knowledge to help the fight against obesity, or you can use it to sell even more high-energy foodstuffs. You can use it to make our financial decisions sounder, or you can use it to yet again get people borrowing too much and taking on too much risk. You can use it to hide tax rises, or you can use it so that everybody gets their entitlements. So the big question, the big idea I'm putting before you tonight is how can we ensure that this new science of your economic decision-making is put to good use? That's a big question, and I can only offer a tentative answer. I know roughly what we want. We want organisations to make it easier for us to take good decisions. We want our public services, we want our markets, our supermarkets, our buildings, our public spaces, our transport systems, our waste systems, our internet, to be designed in such a way that it helps us to take better decisions for ourselves. So the danger, of course, is that we end up with a situation where the companies that offer good value and the best products get beaten by the companies that are best at manipulating you. But supposing the company sells itself as being decision-friendly. So what it says, it markets itself as saying, we lay out the products in a way that helps you to best make decisions, and the science shows that that's what we do. A recent study showed that if you level the playing field and package apples just like sweets with colourful cartoon characters, more children buy them. That's what a decision-friendly company would do. Similarly for government, if when people get their driver's licences, you make them decide then and there between being an organ donor or not, about 3 to 4 times as many of you will choose to be donors. Whether we like it or not, science has allowed organisations greater control over our decision-making. That's what this science shows. And the crucial thing for us is that we make sure they use it for our benefit. Thank you very much for your attention.